All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? We're back. Episode's brought to you by Highball. I'm always running on Highball. Hope you guys had a good week. Some crazy stuff this weekend. There was an awesome boxing match between Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. And I think Jake, hopefully, I think you enjoyed that. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot to unpack this week in boxing because that whole thing was a lot. And Jake Paul basically lit up social media again, and in the worst of ways. And Tyson was, I thought that definitely, I thought that was better than it was going to be. So briefly, we'll just touch over UFC. There was supposed to be Derek Lewis versus Curtis Blades, which I was really excited for, but it got canceled. Blades got COVID, and that was really that. And then Derek Lewis randomly called out Conor McGregor for no reason. He said he wanted to fight Conor. And he said he made up this fake story that Conor's been continuously calling him out. I think he was kind of joking, but that was a little over the news. But the fight that
Wait,
ended up,
did he call him out after
I don't know, it was like during the
Saturday?
week. It was like during the week or after the fight got canceled, and he was like, Conor keeps calling me out. It's like, I'm gonna fight Conor.
I was gonna say maybe he was making fun of Jake Paul.
Maybe. He actually could have been. I don't know. Maybe he knows. I don't know. A lot of these guys didn't seem to know who Jake Paul was unless they were like lying. But I don't know. But because they talked about it a lot. But I mean, at least like I heard Curb Your Enthusiasm. We were just talking about that's Helwani and DC, right?
No, that's Larry David.
Oh, is that show? Oh,
Yeah.
what's DC and Helwani's show?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay, maybe. Yeah, I don't know why you would know. I thought I could have swore it was Curb something, but oh wait, wasn't there a drill? I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, that was a
You know what? It's weird too. I was actually when I was on YouTube just earlier. I saw their show and I
yeah,
saw the title and I can't think of the name. I just saw it.
yeah.
Uh,
All right. Anyways, but they were talking about it, and we'll get to that with the Jake Paul stuff. But so Derek Lewis Blades got canceled, so that was kind of like a bummer because I was really looking forward to that fight. Anthony Smith versus Devin Clark was the main event that moved into the main event, and that was like Smith. I predicted Smith, and he triangle choked. He triangle choked Devin Clark in the first round. So, and it was just like Devin Clark was not very smart. He pressured in and then tried to hit Anthony Smith early, and then Anthony Smith just took his back, and then they transferred into from there he got into a triangle, and that was really it. And I think the fight lasted like maybe it was under 2 minutes. I think it was like a minute 47. He submitted him, so it was a relatively short fight, but it was a really good performance by Anthony Smith. So he should be coming up there, and he should be having some good fights, depending on where they want to put him. But it was definitely impressive. He did very well, and it was, like I said, it was a good fight overall. This weekend, we got Jack Hermanson versus my Italian brother, Marvin Vittori. He's an upcoming Italian UFC fighter. He's a favorite right now. I think he's going to win by KO. He's kind of like a bull. He's just like a hard puncher, just one of those guys that's just kind of like walk you down and get in your face, and then but he's a really good all-around fighter, and he's fighting Jack Hermanson, who's someone who's been around for a while and is a really good fighter. So that should be a good fight back and forth. Then after that, we got OSP, which is Olivia St. Preux versus Jamala Hill, not the ESPN reporter. Jamal, but OSP, I always like watching him fight. He's known for this Von Flue choke that like he's had like 4 or 5 submissions of in his career. So I'm gonna go ahead and predict he's gonna win by Von Flue. He's not the favorite, but I don't think he has been in his last 2 fights, and he's won. So that should be a really good fight as well. So my predictions: we got Martin Vittori, I'm gonna say by KO in the second round. And then OSP by Von Flue, I'll say second round as well. So a couple good fights this weekend. UFC kind of got ravaged this past weekend because of COVID. There was supposed to be like a pretty big ending to the year, and a lot of them got canceled because of COVID. Which, like I said, Derek Lewis and Blades, and then there were supposed to be not next weekend, but the weekend after. There was supposed to be a fight night, like the last fight of the year was supposed to be Kamaev and Leon Edwards and like a couple other fighters, and then they both got COVID, or Kamaev got COVID, so they canceled it for the rest of the year. But UFC 256 is still on, so that should be a good end of the year. So we got Vittorio Hermanson this weekend. Then next weekend we have Figueiredo fighting again on 2 weeks training, and then against Brandon Moreno. That should be a really good fight. And then Tony Ferguson and Charles Oliveira. This fight is going to be interesting because like the lightweight division for UFC right now has been basically thrown in a flux because no one knows if Khabib's coming back or if he's actually going to fight, and he has the belt right now. So essentially, the conversation is who's next in line to have a shot at the belt. Is it going to be vacated? And there's like 6 pieces to the puzzle that they're trying to figure out, which is basically Conor, Gaethje, Ferguson, Michael Chandler, drawing a blank. Michael Chandler. I can't remember the other 2, but Poirier, who's fighting Conor, and then there's a couple that are mixed in that could come up, and they're trying to make the matches, and everyone's talking about who should fight who and how they should do it, and they should do some type of like basically round robin tournament, but like the McGregor Poirier fight is set, so that's going to be, and I don't think any of these will be for the belt, but they're going to be pieces to the puzzle to get to the belt. And then Ferguson versus Oliveira is going to be next weekend, which would be a really good fight, and I think a must win for Tony Ferguson. And then Michael Chandler and Gaethje is another fight that they've talked about or thought about, but Michael Chandler's kind of like backed out because he said he's done too many weight cuts and he doesn't want to do any more right now. So I think the lightweight division is gonna, it's gonna have a lot of fun happening in the next 2 to 3 months, especially in the early part of 2021, because Connor's going to be fighting, and then I can't imagine that Gaethje's not going to fight soon. And then Michael Chandler's been supposed to start in the UFC for like 3 or 4 months, and he hasn't. And like he's one of those guys that's coming over from Bellator, so he's got first impressions matter. And like if you're going to come over from Bellator and he's been talking a big game, and then you come and you don't get it done on your first fight, or I feel like if he's going to come in, and because he's been hyped up a lot, and like people are talking about him, and like he's this, he's that, but then he can't come in and then fight a nobody either. Like I feel like if they're going to bring him in, they have to bring him in against somebody who's capable and like a big name to get him going. And I go to his gym, so hopefully he doesn't get mad at me if he ever ends up hearing this. But I don't know who he fights because I think he's too small. And I've seen enough of him to have like an opinion on him, but like I've never seen him fight live. But again, he's fighting Bellator, so I'm sure they're good. But stepping into the cage right away from Bellator to UFC guys who are and they're talking about Gaethje or Ferguson or all these top lightweights, lightweights. It's not an easy task to come over, and I think there's a different skill level that becomes associated with stepping from like a thing like Bellator, which is still rising. It's known, and there's been like guys who are there, but usually it's almost like Bellator is to me is kind of like the MLS of like soccer, whereas like it seemed like the guys who were a little bit older in UFC or didn't make it there anymore were transitioned to Bellator, and it's like MLS is kind of like it's the home of people who still want to play or make money at least, and like not retire essentially. So like
Right.
they've had Chael Sonnen, they've had Vitor Belfort, they've had Tito Ortiz, I believe, like just these guys who are like really good in the UFC, but as this transition started to happen where UFC became more popular and there was like an influx of guys, they were like that initial bunch, and then they didn't want to stop, so they kind of like transitioned to Bellator, and but they were older, so like, and they're not to say they weren't good fighters, but like, I think it's right now it's still up and coming, and it's an MLS type thing, so they're very good talent. But again, like coming from Bellator to UFC and being a champion is, I don't know if it's been done yet specifically, and if it has, I'm sorry for forgetting, but I don't think anyone's come from as a Bellator champion and then come in and became a UFC champion. Um, so I'm interested to see that, and I'm interested to see what they do with Chandler. But obviously, like I said, Ferguson, this is going to be a must-win for him coming up, but we'll obviously talk about that more next week. So Martin Vittori, I think, is going to win. Ovin St. Prude, not Olivier, sorry. Ovin St. Prude, I think, is going to win. And yeah, so that's the UFC card. Then we can move on to this, the fun stuff, the Tyson Jones Jr. fight. A lot of stuff to unpack there from beginning to end. I'll let Jake start, and then I'll go from there. I'll say my point of view after. So basically, like, I want to hear your thoughts overall on the card, and then thoughts on presentation, and then kind of you can go into whatever you want to talk about.
So first I'll say that overall the entire show was actually pretty good. I like how they had live performances in between fights.
A lot of people didn't like that.
Some of the live performances were trash. I mean, I like the idea. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
like they had to do YG on there, like doing
Yeah.
his blood dance. Like, I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's I like, I don't know, like, and again, I'm a 90s hip hop head,
Yeah.
so maybe I'm just old and out of the loop, but is Wiz Khalifa even still relevant?
I don't know. I know he still makes music. I haven't heard anything like big from him in a while, because he switched. He like left music and started doing MMA for a while. But yeah, he had a bunch of throwbacks. I was listening
Yeah,
to that song.
that's
I
what
was
I'm
like,
saying.
shit,
So
I
like,
forgot about this song. I forgot
that's what I'm
about
saying.
this.
So like the songs he performed were, I know them from a
Yeah, they were
while.
old. Yeah.
So now look at, you bring Snoop on there to do like his classics, like that was fucking cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like that. So
And
I
think-
like the idea. I like the idea of what they did. I thought it was an entertaining show. And like how it started off with a bang. Like, I didn't see the free fight that they had on before,
Mhm.
but I saw the lightweights, who are actually real boxers.
Yeah, those guys. That was a really good fight.
Yeah, that was a
back and
really good
forth.
fight. Yep. And then Badu Jack fought some dude that was way too tough for his own good.
He fucked him.
Yeah, the dude was super tough, man. But
He was big. He was a
Badu
big
Jack,
dude. But he was,
yeah, Badu Jack was obviously just on a different level. Although I don't understand, like, I tweeted about this, Badu Jack talking that shit, like, oh, there's levels to this. But then he goes in there and, like, now granted, he did pick him apart, like, he was landing whatever he wanted, but he was just following the dude around the
yeah.
ring instead of cutting off the ring. And like, I'm like, what isn't, like, the levels you're talking about, like, you learn how to cut off the ring on one of those levels, like, what the that, so that bothered me a little bit. I actually thought that he probably could have got him out of there. But I also thought that maybe he may have been, because Badu Jack has lost a couple of really questionable decisions his last couple.
Yeah, I heard that. I forgot who it was. It was who's the main announcer?
Man, I can never remember that dude's name.
Well, anyways, obviously I've heard his name.
He's awesome too, and I feel bad for not remembering.
He was saying that last couple times that Jack's had decisions, he's got fucked basically. Like, he's just gotten
bad. And it kind of seemed. It seems like something I probably would have done. I was like being in there with someone that I know that I could pick apart and just punish him for the entire fight because I'm mad about, you know what I mean? And I think it's to give yourself a boost of confidence too. Like, I beat someone so fucking bad that going into the next fight, I just feel like a champ again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I could see that being what happened. It was entertaining though, because the dude was so tough.
Yeah, I mean, I that dude took fucking like he was, and at the end, they were
I
like,
hope they checked on him because
yeah, because he took a fucking beating, and like he was, and it wasn't just like a, and that's the thing is like it wasn't just like a headshot type thing. Like his body was getting destroyed, his face was getting destroyed. He was just getting like chopped, just
yeah.
chopped and
And
destroyed.
he was hurt a handful of times from the body shots.
Yeah,
You could see like he get caught with a body shot and then took a few steps
yeah,
back.
yeah.
So he was hurt. Yeah, so like the whole show I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like it's the first one they've done like that.
Yeah.
I think it'll get better, like maybe we'll get some better performances, better fighters, because I'm sure that promoters get in the way of like bigger name fighters getting on a card like that.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it was successful, especially according to the numbers of the pay-per-view buy. So maybe they do that again, and we get some bigger name fighters on the undercard.
I honestly think that if they do it again, I think this did really well, and I think next time it's going to do even better because I think a lot of people were turned off at the beginning,
Yeah.
and a lot of people were turned off right before the fight. Because I'm in a bunch of like sports groups on Facebook, and like everyone was like, "I'm not buying the fight. I'm not buying the fight. Like it's not even going to be a fight. It's not even going to be a fight." And I think and I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about it. I listened to like a clip, and he was saying that like he didn't think it was going to be. He thought the fight was going to be a fight. Like he was like, "There's no way these two guys are going in there." He's like, "I feel like they made these rules ridiculous because it's in California, and to get it commissioned in California, you were probably like, yeah, I have to agree to this."
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
And then
It would have been the same. They're fucking 51 and 54.
Well, no.
Joe Rogan's got some fucking like thing against California. That's why he moved to Texas. Like sometimes, dude, he's just such a super bro redneck. It drives me nuts, dude.
Well,
For like all the interesting shit that he says dumb shit like that. No, listen, they made those rules like that. It would have been like that anywhere.
Well, that's what he's saying.
For safety's sake, because they're in their 50s. You can't have them fight under the normal rules, because they're senior citizens.
Yeah,
you can't have two old guys killing each other.
Well, that's what I think he meant, and like I think he meant that like they had to agree to these shitty rules just so they could get it to go, and like especially in California because it's a little bit harder to get that stuff done there, and New York is the same thing. Like California and New York were some of the hardest, and New York just had MMA, like when Conor fought there in 2016. Like that was the first time they had MMA in however many years. So like getting that stuff done there, he was like, once they step in, it's going to be a fight, and I think that's exactly what it was. And like,
again, like I would venture to guess. I'm not sure, but I would venture to guess that a lot of those people are not real boxing fans that were deciding that they were going to watch it. One, because if you're a real boxing fan, you know that doesn't matter how old fighters are, fighters fight. You know that. And two, they're two of the greatest fighters that we've ever seen. So it's like you have to if you love fighting. And again, like we talked about it last week, those rules are put in because they are old, but it wouldn't have gone through if the fighters themselves didn't agree to things like, "Oh, we know what we're going to do when we get in there." And you heard both of them saying it leading up to the fight, like it's a fight. We're going to get in there. We're going to hit each other. It's a fight. And that's what we got. We got. I mean, out of Tyson anyway. Roy looked real fucking tired, man.
Yeah, he was shot.
He looked tired walking into the ring. He didn't even walk in a straight line. My man was swerving like he was hammered or something. He looked tired already. But you saw glimpses of it. Little like 6-7 second spurts of him, like old Roy. But then he again. Both of their boxing minds are still there. But their bodies, Roy's body was like, "No, man, I can't do that." Like
Yeah.
you see Roy wanting to do certain shit, and his body was like, "No way, bro. I'm not doing all that." But Tyson looked fucking great
He really
for me.
did. Like
He was sharp, he was agile, he looked really good. And I said it, man, because his style ages well. Because he doesn't depend on like being up on his toes and bouncing all the time.
yeah.
There's not a lot of wasted movement in because one of the things that we forget that people that don't really pay attention to boxing forget is that Tyson was one of the most technical boxers in the history of boxing.
Mhm.
It's certainly one of the most technical heavyweights ever, and he had to be because of his size. Um, and you could see those the technical skills there, like because it doesn't take like he's not using all of his physical ability. He's not wasting it. Like some of that shit that Roy Jones does, it was based on him being super athletic,
Yeah.
but it was wasted movement. Like there was a lot of shit that he was doing that it wasn't necessary to land a punch.
Yeah.
He was just doing shit.
Yeah.
You can see that now that they're in their 50s, Roy can't do those things because they're unnecessary. And Tyson doesn't have to worry about anything. Every move he makes is efficient. Right? I mean, it's for a purpose. It's to land a punch or to counter a punch. You know what I mean? And you could see that, and that's why it looked so much better because that's the way that he's built. That's the way that he fights.
And honestly, like it was one of those things where watching Tyson, where like if you squint your eyes hard enough and you like picture him as a younger self, like you could see, like he was just moving. Like it's just like you just saw like older Tyson and like Jones. Like I said, Jones Jr. Like I don't know. Like I was joking with you. I texted you and I said he looked like he was wearing the first Batman suit because he
Yeah,
couldn't turn his head. He was just like this every
yeah.
time. Like he'd throw those punches where he was just like looking the other way and just moving forward. But I think even like you said, both of them showed good glimpses of themselves and like really good skill and just like the fight was my expectation going in was it was going to be a good fight. I thought it was a great fight. I thought it was way more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. I think that both of them had a lot to show, and I think that if they continue to do this right and they give them enough rest and like um, they do it in the right ways, I think that this is something that can continue to happen. And I think what's going to happen is the views are going to keep going up and people are going to start doing it. And like I think this can be a little bit more of like a fun way to get boxing back to where it needs to be. And I think that something like this needed to happen, where these guys are kind of like bringing it back. But I think also what can happen here is like they can start mixing this with like bigger actual fights, like an actual undercard of like, you know, top lightweights, top or whatever, top fighters in the game, pound for pound fighters on an undercard with like Mike Tyson and they're talking about Holyfield and Tyson again because Holyfield called him out after and like he
Yeah.
was saying like, yeah, I'm ready if you just sign the contract or whatever, whether that's true or not is obviously a different story, but having something like this now where and I think and like I said, I think you're going to see a lot more of it. The only thing I don't like about it that's happening right now is like and we'll get into this a little bit more, and it's more specifically in terms of like Jake Paul. Everyone is just like literally all facets of people are just calling each other out to fight. Like there's like Evan Turner. Do you know Evan Turner, the basketball player?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He called out Jake Paul. Like everyone's calling out Jake Paul. All these fighters are calling out Jake, like these low level fighters and like these other fighters are calling out Jake Paul. YouTubers are just calling out each other. Everyone wants to be a boxer now. Everyone wants to be a fighter now. And like, I'm afraid it's going to dilute it to a certain degree, but I'm also afraid that like, again, there's going to be more of a mix between like these, I think someone's going to get hurt really first. Like Nate, and we can talk about Nate Robinson because he got hurt. Like that wasn't fun to watch. He had no fucking clue what he was doing when he stepped in that ring. Like he was just, I don't know who trained him. Understand? Like I don't understand that. Like he didn't have a lot of time to train, but like he I don't even think he threw like a jab. Every jab he threw, he was like hopping towards Jake and like they clinched every 30 seconds, if not less, like every 15 seconds. Um, but like this is introducing a lot of people back to boxing, and it's bringing people back to boxing, but I think it's doing it in a way where now anybody's just calling out anybody and they're just trying to fight each other for no reason.
Well, I'm actually looking at some numbers right now. I've heard this from uh, a couple places, this back bringing people back to boxing, and according to these numbers, boxing hasn't gone anywhere.
No, and
Uh,
like, I don't mean,
so here, this graphic I'm looking at right now has the pay-per-views, UFC compared to boxing from 2002 to 2017. Boxing had the top pay-per-view by 13 out of the 16 years.
did that.
And UFC's all-time high pay-per-view buy was 1.65 million, which was McGregor versus Diaz 2. Boxing topped that.
Actually, I
one,
think,
two,
when
three,
was that from? Because I'm pretty sure Habib and
four.
was,
Boxing topped that 5 times.
yeah.
So in the last 16 years. So it's boxing really hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I think the difference with them right now, and this is what I was kind of alluding to, is boxing is more of a peak, whereas UFC is kind of this steady flow of like a lot of really good fights, whereas boxing has been, in terms of like the casual fan, has been Mayweather's fighting, okay, Mayweather's fighting, okay, and then like, the people who watch boxing are like, yeah, there's been fights, and I'm sure if you look at like the overall, I don't know what you'd call it, but like the overall trend of like, you take like the middle and not like the extremes on both ends. UFC probably is a little bit more stable in between in terms of like buys. I could be wrong because I'm not. I'm
yeah,
just
well, guys, yeah. So and it's what we were talking about a couple weeks ago about stars, right? Like boxing has always like whoever the big guy is, people are gonna watch him fight.
Yeah.
So it's like the guy that's coming up, if he gets that fight, it's like, oh, now he has new fans, probably, right?
Yeah.
It actually works the same way in the UFC because all of the top buys you got, back in the early 2000s, it was Ortiz and Shamrock. Then it was Couture and Liddell 3 years in a row. And then Couture and Lesnar, then Lesnar and Lesnar. And then Silva, Weidman, and then McGregor. You know what I mean? So it's the same. It works the same way in the UFC. People are watching names. So I think what I think is happening is because the UFC is more accessible. Like they have like things going on, and it seems like it's more organized. That there's this assumption that more people are watching UFC and like people are somehow drifting away from boxing. And actually, the numbers show that way more people watch boxing than watch the UFC, like overall.
Yeah, and
so I don't think boxing needs to do anything like for the fans. Like we talked about this before, it'd be great to like make the fights that people want to see easier to make. That would be great. But the fact is, like, no one needs to do any work to get people to pay more attention to boxing. It hasn't dropped off at all.
Yeah.
Not one bit. I mean, Alvarez is still getting over 1 million pay-per-view buys every single time Canelo fights.
Yeah.
And that's like, just so in 2017, UFC's top fight was fucking Woodley versus Thompson too. It got 300,000 buys. Yeah. Canelo versus fucking Chavez Jr. got 1 million. So it's like, I mean, boxing doesn't really need to do any work. Like, I think this event just sort of, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, look, boxing can do something that's more non-traditional in terms of boxing and still get people to buy.
Yeah.
Because of the name, though. Again, fight fans, whether it's UFC or boxing, they're following names.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like people that know Tyson and Jones were like, yep, I'm going to check this out. Right. Yeah. So I think it's just, I don't think that's ever going to change. You got big names.
No, and like I said, I think that you're right, and like there's people are going to follow names regardless. I think that the difference is like there's a lot of, and maybe I'm wrong, like bad connotations around like the setup of boxing and like the promoters and the fights and the way that, you know, this back and forth of everything. And like, I think that
That is true. That
yeah,
that is true. And we've talked about. I think there's no question that is true.
and
But
like, and that's what I think is gonna, you know, if they start making this in a way where it's a little bit more exciting for the casual fan to sit down and watch and know a name right now. And like the thing that I'm saying is that like, and again, I don't think I'm wrong about this. The casual fan would not know number number 15 pound for pound on boxing. Whereas I think that UFC right now, there's more awareness of the entire, I'm going to say roster overall. Whereas
yeah,
like, you know, boxing's very top, like people know Canelo, people know Floyd, people know, you know, Tyson, Jones Jr. Like these guys are names. And like, I think it's very top heavy. And then like, you know, Lomachenko, Lopez, like, all these guys. And UFC is very like, you know, the lightweight division itself has like 8 guys that I can name off the top of my head. The heavyweight division has like 5 to 10 guys that I can name off the top of my head. The middleweight or the welterweight division has like 5 to 10 guys I can name off the top of my head. Like there's just like a, a more in maybe an awareness of UFC that like if boxing does this right, they can make people know number 10 like they do in UFC. And what I mean by number
yeah,
10 is like that guy that's coming up, that guy who and again, this is for casual fans because I think that for for boxing to solve its issues, there needs to be more of the casual tune in as opposed to like and I think UFC's done a really good job of the casual tune in.
yeah. But you know what? Here's it. Let's break that down though. The casual fan, because you get, and it's one of the problems I have with people saying, "Oh, Jake Paul brought in some new fans." Well, I think the last thing that we want is casual fans and people that don't know shit about boxing
And Jake Paul's a definitely
determining.
a one off because I don't agree with him.
Yeah, but casual fans though, like so you're saying like, oh, someone that comes in and doesn't watch that much, they know like, oh, the 15th ranked middleweight. Okay,
Yeah.
but now that puts us in a position where, because it's the same thing in UFC, which is why I think they have. It's like, yeah, you know these guys, but so just to put one of the numbers out there. So okay, we know these guys. So let's um so which one is okay, so everyone knows fucking um Teron Woodley,
Mhm.
right? Like he's in UFC, he's a big name. And this is one of the things that this graphic is showing. Like the UFC has had more box office draw. They had 9 guys that were the top billing, compared to boxing, who had the 6. So, like we said, big names, right? But that year that Woodley was the top UFC draw, they had 300,000 pay-per-views. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we know him, but it's part of the reason why the fighters don't get paid much.
Yeah.
And now we have casual fans determining what fights we get,
Yeah.
which I don't want. Who
Yeah.
the fuck wants that? Who
Yeah.
wants a casual fan came in? Well, because I pay money now. Look at, people are paying money to see fucking, um, you know, who the fucking boxing is like that. Like, um, I don't know. Oh, okay, let's say Devin Haney, for example, right?
Mhm.
Which is kind of a bad example for what I'm trying to say here. He's a really, really fucking great boxer, but he's not exciting because he's not going to knock anybody out.
Yeah.
So now we get people coming in. They're like, oh, I know who Devin Haney is now.
Yeah.
You know, right? Now people are paying to watch him watch him fight. So the promoters are gonna be like, let's make a big fight with Devin Haney and Tio,
Yeah.
and watch Tio fucking knock him out in 3 rounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then we have casual fans determining what fights get made, and no one wants that. I don't want that as a fight fan.
And
I like it. I like it when I get Mayweather versus Pacquiao, Mayweather versus Cotto. You know what I mean? Those guys have a name for a reason.
yeah.
Most of the time it's because they're really, really good at what they do.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's that big of a problem. Like we've discussed it before. Like, look at, sometimes there are fights that can be made that don't get made for a long time just because of like childish disagreements between
Yeah.
promoters.
Yeah.
And that's where the UFC is ahead a little bit, because it's like, the promoter is the company. So it's like, we're going to make this fight happen. But it doesn't always make sense. Like, as you can see, so the UFC are like, yeah, these are the top guys. He deserves a shot. But the numbers show that no one gives a fuck most of the time. You know what I mean? So I don't know
I
that.
think in general, I think you're 100% right. I think that boxing has a base. They have a pillar of fans that you're not going to get rid of, and I just think that's in general. There's not, you know, that's why you see those peaks, and I think that the people like Canelo are, and they have again. I'd much rather watch. I think right now in my life, I'd much rather watch I can't. McGregor is a one-off because I'd watch anything that he does, but like in terms of like the top guys, besides like Habib and a couple others for UFC, I'd much rather watch Canelo fight. His like if I was to choose a pay-per-view on the same night of like Canelo or like another top fighter in UFC, I'd probably most of the time go Canelo, or I'd mostly go with like a Floyd fight or someone like that, as opposed to being like, all right, I'm gonna watch like John Jones, or I'm gonna watch I don't know, like another big name, like maybe even Habib and Gaethje. Like I like Habib and Gaethje as a fight, but like if Canelo was to fight Floyd, I'd rather watch Canelo and Floyd 100%.
Yeah,
Like I wouldn't even.
you know what's crazy? So Khabib is like known as one of the GOATs,
Yeah,
right? He's not on here fucking once.
yeah. The only
Like,
time
not
he
once
is,
is the top
the only
billing.
time he is with McGregor, and whether
Right,
it's
right. McGregor was the only time. How fucked is it? That's what I'm saying. Like that's John Jones is not on here either at all. He was not the top billing, and he's one of the better. Like so, yeah. I mean, again, we talked about it before. It's as an organization, it's like they have certain things like nailed down for the fans, but in the end, I don't know how good it like from year to year. It isn't that steady because again, unless McGregor is fighting, it doesn't seem that even people in the UFC give a fuck.
Yeah,
Like no, it went from 1.65 million buys in 2016 with McGregor and Diaz too, to the highest one the next year was 300,000 with Woodley and Thompson.
Yeah.
So it's like it's the same thing. Unless it's the big name, no one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to wrangle this back in and coming back around, kind of where we started was, Tyson and Roy Jones putting something together that is, on whoever's opinion, better or worse for the sport of boxing. And I think that, like I said, overall, the guys who put this together did a really good job. I think they had an awesome performance. They had really good ideas. The fights were really good throughout. Tyson and Jones, I think exceeded my expectations easily throughout. Everyone seemed to, a lot of it got drowned out by Jake Paul, and a lot of it they didn't. I don't think that Jones Jr. and Tyson got the recognition that I think they should have because of Jake Paul. At least what I'm seeing. Like maybe that's because I follow a couple more different things on social media. But like after everyone was talking about Jake Paul. That was the story on most fight podcasts I listened to, most fight articles that I read, most fight tweets and Instagram posts that I read. It was just about Jake Paul calling out Conor, Floyd, Dylan Dennis, Ben Askren, like just calling out these people and having no, merit or backing. And, he did well. Like he should have beat Nate Robinson because Nate Robinson literally looked like a child in there and had no business being in there. So like, I mean, he's just going to keep fighting people. And this was one of the other problems I had with Jake Paul. And not so much as like a fighter, because I can't say anything because he stepped in the ring. I've never stepped in the ring. You can have more of a say in that than I can. But like, when this is going to lead to some bad stuff because they're talking about making fights now that like have no business being together. Whereas like, if Conor and Jake were to fight, Conor's never going to be 200 pounds and Jake's never going to be 155 pounds or 170 pounds. And like, so what's going to happen here is like, are they just going to start like piecing shit together? Whoever wants to fight, whoever is just going to fight. Like, is that what they're going to do? If that's what they're going to do, then like, that's fine. But like, I think that it's going to like devolve the sport to a certain degree. And it's going to come down to a point
exactly. Yes. That's it. You devolve the sport. That's what part of what I've been telling people when they say, oh, Jake Paul's bringing new fans in. We don't need those fucking fans because it's going to make our sport that has fucking honor. And again, like this is something that's been going on for centuries. This is a sport that was used to prepare soldiers for fucking war.
Yep.
Okay. This is not some fucking game. It's not like, oh, let's pick up basketball, bro, and go to the park and hoop. It's not the same shit. You get fucked up. And for all the fucking idiots out there saying, oh, well, he's like, you could tell he's taking it seriously. Is he though? Because after the fight, he didn't call out one boxer. So how fucking seriously is he taking boxing?
Yeah.
He didn't call out one actual fighter, one boxer. I mean, it was a McGregor, Dylan. They're not boxers.
Yeah.
So how seriously are you taking it? And again, so the Tyson Jones, the event got 1.2 million pay-per-view buys, which is huge.
Yeah.
But it may I would guess that a lot of those buys were for Tyson and Jones.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said, fight people that know them, like old school boxing heads, are watching that fight.
I would like to see the. I wonder if you could find that
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I'm sure somewhere someone did some polls, like who are you, like out of all the people that bought it, who are you most excited to watch? But that's not good for boxing.
Yeah.
It's not good for boxing to have fans in there that don't know what the fuck they're watching.
Yeah.
Because again, then it becomes, and I guess this is one of the reasons that the way that boxing is kind of better, because although like obviously it's corrupt, but won't be corrupted by people with no knowledge of the sport.
Yeah.
It won't be corporate corruption. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is where the UFC can fall under that, as we've seen. It's like okay, what's best for fucking UFC, but doesn't really help the fighters. Yeah. And that doesn't happen in boxing because everyone's an independent contractor.
Yeah.
So I think one of the good things about having a bunch of independent contractors is like guys can decide if they're going to step in the ring with a guy who has no business being in the ring just to make money.
Yeah.
Which most of them probably won't.
Yeah.
Like guys that really give a fuck about winning belts and being, talked about in boxing lore are going to step in there with Jake Paul no matter how much the money is. One of the reasons is because boxers get paid mega bucks anyway. So they don't need to sell out to fight Jake Paul to make some money. They don't need that because they're well taken care of.
Yeah.
But if it does get to that point, it's just going to make boxing a joke.
Yeah.
Jake Paul fighting real fighters makes boxing a fucking joke.
Yeah.
Because he's a joke.
Yeah.
He's not a fighter. And all this shit that he's talking about, he comes out, he's like, oh, I'm built for this, and people don't know how hard I've had it. I know it must have been terrible being on the Disney Channel and making millions of dollars when you're a kid. It must be awful. That sounds so rough.
He's an idiot for that. Like there's and like whatever. Maybe he had mental struggles and he had shit that he went through, but
listen, life is tough for everyone. I get it, but it's tougher for some people.
But there's actually people who fucking like struggle and like don't have money and don't have a family and don't have like all that stuff and
end up in boxing gyms because of that very reason.
Yeah.
That will never be on the undercard of a fight like that because fuckface like that gets there. You know what I mean? He gets that opportunity instead of someone else. So yeah, I don't, him being in the sport and getting attention like that is not good for and I've seen some fucking, like this dude, Coach Anthony, the dude I follow on Instagram and YouTube, coach from Philly of all places, came on Instagram and was like, oh, he's bringing new people to boxing. Bro, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, I think
boxing doesn't need new fans. I mean, the numbers show it. The fucking we don't need new fans. We need fans.
Sure in terms of like owning a business in boxing or having something to do with boxing, you probably get some type of excitement seeing that, because if you own a gym and for whatever reason Jake Paul hits it very well with the demographic and they say, I want to go box in like a gym, that I can understand. But like from an actual fan of boxing perspective, like it doesn't help anything right now. And like it doesn't help anything in terms of like we just said, devaluing what it is and devolving what boxing has become, because it turns into this mess of what MMA used to be, which was like early MMA was whoever the fuck wanted to fight whoever, they fought. It was just, if you were a wrestler who wanted to fight a boxer, you did it. If you were an MMA guy who wanted to fight a Taekwondo guy, you did it. And it was just like, it was cool, but it was such like a mix and mess of things that like it wasn't popular. And like it wasn't as popular as it is now. And like
Yeah.
understanding it just started then, but like I don't know that getting back to a point where anybody just fights anybody. I think it's cool to talk about and be like, you know, and this is the thing is like, again, you have idiots like Colby Covington calling out LeBron for no reason. Like it, whatever you want to say, like go ahead. But like, what are you accomplishing by calling out LeBron besides like getting some clout for 15 minutes on Instagram? You know, like even if you were to fight LeBron, you know, like I'd almost like give LeBron a decent chance because he's twice the size of Colby Covington. But it's just like, you know, like he's gonna lose, and like, what are you gonna prove for that? Oh yeah, I beat up LeBron James because he's not a fighter; he's a basketball player.
Right. I beat up a basketball player. That doesn't do shit for you as a fighter.
Yeah,
Doesn't.
yeah. And then like you know, and then like I said, it's just like you know it's getting to a point where a lot of these guys, and I think this is the only reason it's working right now is because a lot of these guys that are onto the lower level or like mid tier of these fighters are looking for paychecks. Like you said, they're looking for paychecks, and then a guy like Jake Paul who can you can bring you know however many followers he has and like true followers. You know, maybe he has 1 million people that are like Jake Paul fans, and like you bring that into a fight, you're gonna make you know couple few $100,000, and like you could do that and make your money and not have to worry about the UFC or whatever. And like I think that's where this is gonna start to get bad because these people who like Jake Paul who are bringing their following and really aren't fighters, they're getting these people who are real fighters who might not have the following, and these guys are you know and there's not everybody is a Habib or like a guy who's like literally just wants to fight and like or a Canelo or like you don't see Canelo busting around on social media saying shit. Like he's in the gym, he's training, he's fighting, he's the best at what he does.
That's what real boxers do.
And that's what I'm saying is like
fucking, they just box.
yeah,
Like yeah, I'm here to do this thing. I'm not here to fuck around and talk shit and do all this dumb shit. You know what I mean?
like you see that, but like what I'm saying is like there's guys who know they don't have what it takes to get to, and a lot of guys don't, and a lot of guys will never be Canelo, a lot of guys will never be McGregor, a lot of guys will never be Habib, and they see that, and they're like, okay, what's my next bout, or what's my next path to make X amount of money? Oh, there's some fucking idiot YouTuber who can bring me and make me $1 million, and I can fight him and kick his ass. Sure, let's fucking do it. And then it's just like this happens, they merge, and then he hurts him, he makes his money, but that's it. And but it's like this is what this is going to lead to. It's going to lead to like this low level, like almost like this bottom of the barrel, like fights that are just going to be between like Ben Askren. Who is Ben Askren? The only reason I know Ben Askren is because he got kneed in the face by Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah.
And like now they're talking about like I think he said no regardless, but like if Jake Paul was like, listen, I can make you $2 million if you fight me, why would you say no?
Yeah.
It's just like
here's the thing. I would applaud a fighter, an actual fighter that normally wouldn't have the chance to get a payday like that, for taking that and beating the fucking shit out of Jake Paul. Because then, on one hand, I'd be like, okay, we don't got to hear from him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But because we live in America and Americans for the most part are fucking dumb and have a very short attention span, it's like how long before they're pining for the next bullshit social media celebrity to fight another fighter. You know
that's what I mean. It's like that. And that's,
right. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, there's a danger of that becoming a thing.
Yeah, and like and there's people down the line because right now it's Jake Paul's leading the pack, but there's Logan Paul, there's KSI, there's like all these YouTubers who are. And this is the thing, is someone is going to get hurt. Someone is going to talk their way into a fight that they should. And this is the thing, is like, I honestly think if Jake stepped into the ring with Conor, he might actually, I don't know.
He would get hurt.
I think he would get hurt. Like, I really think he would get, damn it. Like, physical harm would be put on him.
And McGregor at his heaviest is still fucking 19 pounds lighter than him. And McGregor would still put him to sleep.
And that's the thing is like you don't. And again,
and McGregor's not even a fucking boxer.
And that's what I mean is like if he goes against, God forbid, he ever got the chance to go against Canelo would actually kill Jake Paul. Yeah. Like he would die in the ring. And
he almost killed Sergey Kovalev, a guy that's fucking naturally like 25 pounds heavier than him.
I saw him hit Amir Khan, and Amir Khan's neck snapped.
Yeah.
It was like one of those cartoons.
Dude, could you imagine like Jake Paul being in there with like Golovkin? Someone that just
and that's the thing. It's like this is what's gonna happen. It's gonna lead to something like this, where it's gonna be a fucking absolute murderer like Triple G, Canelo, and they're gonna go against a guy like Jake Paul he shows glimpses of being okay, and then he's gonna step in there, and Triple G's gonna be like, and Jake Paul is gonna break ribs, break his orbital bone, like smash his face, brain damage. What'd you say?
They're gonna punch him into a fucking coma.
Yeah, and then they're gonna be like, oh, boxing's a brutal sport. Like, don't.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. On one hand, though, that might do fucking wonders just for boxing in general. Like. It might weed out all the weak ones, you know. Right. Yeah. Imagine Golovkin like literally like killing him in the ring.
They should just have a.
And then everyone else who was thinking about doing that was like, you know what? Maybe boxing ain't for me.
And that's the thing is like again, like you talk to these fucking Russians and like, where's Golovkin from?
He's from Kazakhstan, I think.
Yeah, so like you talk to these fucking
Russian.
Yeah, these Russians. These dudes don't give a fuck who you are.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. These Russian dudes, I don't think they would ever, like, no matter, like I was talking about last week about Artur Beterbiev, you know, him because he's a 180-pound champ.
Yeah.
So if you take it seriously, Jake Paul getting there with Beterbiev, but Beterbiev would never do that, and Beterbiev is not even a big name.
Yeah.
But Beterbiev is one of these Russian guys that Russians take boxing very seriously, life or death.
Yeah.
And they would never play a game like that, no matter how much money is thrown at them.
Yeah.
All Beterbiev and the people like him care about is getting there. I must crush people, or I am disgraced to my family. Right. And Jake Paul's like, yeah, man, I got fucking Instagram followers. Like, you know what I mean? And Russians are like, I just want to break face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a huge gap in like. And even Americans who, again, people like all the dudes that I came up around and all the people like that across the country, all the fucking kids in Mexico, all the kids in Ireland, all over the world in these places that are known for generating great boxers have the same thing in common. They come from fucking dirt and they go to the gym and they need a place to fucking let all their fucking anger out. And Jake Paul is not in that category.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's gonna run into a dude that just like it just has been waiting. Like I got into boxing because there's people like me. Like I can't tell you how many times I thought about it in my head. Like I'm in this ring, and legally I could fucking kill someone right now, and I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's an accident. It's boxing. There are people like me in there that like, hey man, if I fuck someone up so bad they die. Hey man, they die. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to punching someone. There are people like that who will carry that around with them. They're like, I'm doing this because this is a great way for me to fucking literally crush someone's skull and get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake Paul doesn't want to run into one of those guys. Yeah. Jake Paul's rich. He's been rich since he was a kid. He doesn't want that. He thinks he does, but he does not want that.
Yeah. It's going to come out, and this stuff's going to start to make its way to the forefront. I think it's going to happen a little bit more aggressively. I think he's going to, I honestly, I think what's going to happen here is he's going to get one of these. They said he's already talking to Connor's team. And like, I hope Connor doesn't give him the light of day, but like, I hope,
Connor's a smart businessman. You know, he's going to fucking do it because it's the same reason why that is the equivalent. I think it's a great fucking comparison. Is what Mayweather did for McGregor. Like, oh, you want to come in here and box? I'm not even gonna train. I'm gonna fuck around with you for 10 rounds, and we're both gonna make a lot of money. Yeah. McGregor's smart enough to fucking know that. I think he'd do the same thing. Yeah. I don't even need to train for it, but we're gonna make a lot of money. We'll talk shit to each other, make a big show of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then McGregor will go in there and then at some point put him out.
Yeah.
But the fucked up thing is that the thing that we're hoping for probably won't happen. McGregor probably won't hurt him because
Yeah.
McGregor is a smart enough businessman to know, like, oh, if I keep him in there long enough and put on a good show, you know what I mean? We'll fucking, it makes us look better. We can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
When we all know that any left hand could put that dude in a coma.
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever happens going forward, besides the whole drama with Jake Paul, I really I think this is going to be good for boxing if they can put this and continue to make it go forward with good like a good presence and a good because it's just going to get better. And I think as they get better and they put on shows like this, it's going to be a lot. It's a lot of fun overall. And you might see some like cool names step back in the ring. There's probably going to be some bad ones where like a 50-year-old like comes back in and gets fucked and just gets like hurt. But like I think that's seeing these guys come back is really cool and it's going to be fun. I also think that I think we both agree on this. And I think you texted me this, and I was thinking the same thing. As Snoop is a pretty good commentator. He's fucking hilarious.
Yep, I think I would like to start a petition for him to replace Timothy Bradley, top rank, because I think I don't know that he knows that much about boxing, but he was entertaining enough and like stayed in the fight enough.
I think the comment
I think he's great.
Was when I think it was like second round or I think it was the first round with Tyson and Roy Jones, and he's like, these are like the uncles at the barbecue fighting.
Yeah, he said this shit looks like two of my uncles fighting at the barbecue. And he was like, Auntie, look at their fight and break them up. It was good, man. It was good.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think they had a good time. I think they had a really good cast. They probably could have been. I mean, Sugar Ray's probably just.
Sugar Ray did not want to be there, bro.
Yeah, he just didn't.
See, and that's the thing. I feel for him too. I think Sugar Ray Leonard looked at that shit like, bro, my entire life was dedicated to this sport, and this is what it's come to. Yeah. He really looked fucking depressed. Like he wanted to
asked him, like everyone was talking about it because they were like, everybody else gave a prediction, and he was the one who was like, they were asked him, and he were like, anything could happen, and that was it. No insight, nothing more. It was just kind of like he was just there, and then like they tried to like go to him throughout, and I really think like Snoop like drove the what do you call it, broadcast. Like he drove it. He was the one who was talking the most, commentating the most. Izzy didn't really say much of importance. Like he was there, and then I forgot the guy's name, but the Showtime guy, like he he was the one who obviously hosted it, but like I don't think like I think you're right. Sugar, I think he saw that and he was like, like this is ridiculous. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Because he didn't really say much. He didn't give much insight. There wasn't much. It was just kind of like, yeah, like it's cool.
Yeah, after the Badu Jack fight, you know what I mean? Like, because Sugar Ray was talking during the first two fights.
Mm-hmm.
He was commenting because they were actual fights.
Yeah.
Once that circus shit started, Sugar Ray was like, man, fuck this, bro.
Yeah. No, but I think overall they did a really good job, and I think that it was
a good show. I think it was a successful show.
Yeah. So we got this weekend. There's I know you said the fight, but I'm pretty sure Spence fights this weekend, doesn't he?
Yeah. No, I was mistaken. Shakur Stevenson is fighting next weekend.
Okay, so it's Errol Spence.
This weekend it's Errol Spence and Danny Garcia.
It's gonna be a very good fight. I'm excited for it. I think I haven't seen Danny Garcia fight in a while. I don't know who was his last fight?
I think his last fight was against Thurman. Let me fucking see here. I think it was Keith. Oh no, it was that dude Ivan Redkitch. Oh yeah. Okay. Ivan. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think.
No, Thurman. Fuck it. Yeah, I forgot Thurman fought Pacquiao. Yeah. He fought Ivan Redkitch in January.
I think it's going to be a really good fight. I'm excited for this because I think, as we've talked about, Errol Spence is one of those guys. He's 26-0, 21 knockouts, just at the top of his game. Just, he's at a, I think this is his first fight back, right?
Yeah.
Since that car accident. So this is a tough spot for him as well because he hasn't fought since his title fight or defense, I think. And he got into a pretty bad car accident and basically couldn't fight. And he's coming back against a guy in Danny Garcia who is, he's 36-2. He's a very good fighter overall. He isn't a nobody. Like uh, I think he's regressed. Would you say over the past,
I
couple
don't.
of years?
Danny Garcia's had a very weird career. Like he's obviously a really great fighter, but like the matchups that they got him in there, like he'll fight a top fighter and then he'll go like 3 fights fighting some fucking bums.
Yeah,
And sometimes he doesn't look good fighting these bums. So I don't know. Like like the talent's there. It's like obviously like you watch him and you're like, yeah, this dude can fight. This dude can really fucking fight. He's tough. Um, but I don't know. Like honestly, this is like one of the toughest um fights that I have thought about in a while. Like
I
as
think,
far as
and I
who I
think
think is gonna win. Like it's
I was
really
gonna say, I
like
think that
under normal circumstances, I think Errol Spence would smoke him.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think under normal, like had a fight this year, fought somebody else stepping into this fight. I don't think it's a question. I think with Danny Garcia's skill level and Errol Spence's quote unquote, we don't know yet, but like rust, um, that could be
And the
like,
injuries, like we don't know how significant the injuries are and what lasting effects there are. I mean, it was a pretty bad fucking car accident. So um I think part of the what would make me say that Errol Spence would just fucking smoke him is the the level of athleticism that he has. That, he's a level above Garcia in terms of athleticism, but how much of that was affected in in this car accident?
yeah,
Like the boxing IQ, I think is close. Um, Errol Spence is a southpaw, so he has a little bit of an advantage there. I think, um, based on the shit that I've seen from Garcia. Although that Danny does a good job of he's the type of guy that he's an orthodox fighter, but he squares up a lot and he's very effective squaring up. Um, so I don't know how much of a disadvantage he'd be at as far as the stances are concerned. But I don't know. This is a tough one, man. This is a tough one. I
yeah. I think what's gonna happen is I think what you're gonna see early on, and again, I don't know for sure, obviously, but I think you'll see a little bit of rust from Spence, and then I think after like I think he's got to take that first hit or like get those first couple like knocks in, and then like he'll start to find his groove. But you're probably going to find out what's going to happen after like the second round. You'll see because like if Spence steps in and he doesn't look fast or he doesn't look sharp or he's letting or he's getting hit a lot, like you're going to see it early on. Because I think that I would imagine that Danny Garcia is going to. I think one of the things to do here for Danny Garcia is be aggressive early on. Because I think if you're going to step into a ring with someone who hasn't had the year that Errol Spence has, I think you're going to want to hit him early and like not give him time to find his groove. And it's not like Errol Spence has been gone for years, but it's like when you're coming off of something like that, an injury, and then you're stepping into your sport, it's going to take a round or two to get under yourself. And like again, speaking just from opinion, you're going to know better of like not being in there and then stepping into the ring with somebody. When you're going to get hit at that point, it's going to be something that you have to like, you're gonna have to be prepared for it. And like
Yeah.
once you get hit, it's gonna be like, all right, he's gonna go one of two ways. He's gonna be like, all right, like I'm good now, or he's gonna get hit and he's gonna be like, fuck. And then you're gonna see it and you'll find out by the first or second round. And I think then it's gonna be a better like, all right, Spence is gonna win, or this might be close, or Danny Garcia is gonna win. But I think most people are safe by saying Spence is gonna win, because like you said, nothing happened normal circumstances. I think Spence destroys him.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make my prediction just based off of what I can, which is what I've seen out of the fighters. Um, I think that Spence's lead hook is a weapon that he uses a lot, uses it well, and I think it's something that'll bother Danny Garcia enough. to where Spence could land the rest of his arsenal. So I'm gonna say Spence decision, and I think it's gonna be because of that lead hook that is pretty badass weapon, to be honest. Like, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think my opinion here is like I just stated, but I think that Spence will win. I think it'll be a split decision. I think he's gonna. I think what's gonna happen is Danny Garcia is gonna probably look really good early on, and some fucking stupid ass boxing judge is gonna be like, "Oh, okay, Danny Garcia won the fight," and then like it's gonna be a split decision. But I think Errol Spence will. I think it's gonna be more of like this uptick of Spence. He's gonna be kind of slow early on, take some stuff, or and I think it all depends on how aggressive Danny Garcia is at the beginning. But I think that Spence will come out and win, and I think it'll be by decision because I don't think you know I don't know if he's gonna be there to be and again I don't know but mentally be there to like knock Danny Garcia out and like I don't think Danny Garcia is the kind of guy who gets knocked out in general.
No, Danny's a tough dude. He'll be in there. I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Garcia pulled it out.
Yeah.
Everything considered, and him, obviously the talent is there. I tell you, he's so his two losses though, which is weird. His only two losses are against Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, and those guys are basically the same fighter.
Yeah.
Those guys just throw a lot of hooks,
Yeah.
a lot of head movement, move in, throw a lot of fucking power shots, and so they're pressure fighters, and Errol Spence is not that. So I think it's gonna be a very interesting fight. I think it's gonna be a real interesting fight. I think it's gonna be an action packed fight too.
Yeah.
Like, I think once we get past the early rounds, it's gonna be action packed.
Yeah. So I think Spence by decision for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any closing remarks?
No, man.
Yeah, cool. I think we
Just
talked about
watch this fight this weekend.
We cleaned a lot of stuff up. We went over the Tyson stuff, talked about some UFC. Again, a couple things coming up at the end of the year for boxing. There's a couple more boxing fights, right? There's some.
Yeah, every week this month. I think next week. So next week we have Shakur Stevenson, but I think Anthony Joshua is fighting next week too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's the one I thought. Yeah.
Let me just say, Anthony Joshua and Shakur Stevenson fighting next week. And then the week after, we have Golovkin is fighting.
Okay.
On that Friday on the 18th. And then the 19th is Canelo and Caleb Smith.
Okay, cool.
And then a couple of weeks after that is Ryan Garcia, Lou Campbell.
Cool. So we got a lot of boxing to talk about. UFC is kind of taken a hit, unfortunately, but there are some good fights coming up for the end of the year, so we'll definitely get on that. So appreciate you sitting down as always. If you guys have any questions or thoughts or predictions or contradictions to our predictions, please let us know. Give it a listen, share, like, subscribe to our videos and our channel. And we always appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.